Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2017, directed by Darren Aronofsky, and this film is called Mother. So Mother is about a husband and wife. They're rebuilding a house that had something happen to it in the past. The husband is a writer, and the wife is trying to give the husband inspiration to write a new piece. He's got writer's block and he doesn't really know where to go with it. So their peaceful existence is going to be interrupted by the arrival of a stranger. Now the stranger happens to be a doctor, but he doesn't know the married couple, and so this puzzles the wife when the husband allows this man to stay as long as he wants in the house. He says the house is big enough, and come and don't worry about where you're going to sleep the next night. And so the puzzling situation becomes intensified when this stranger's wife ends up turning up to the house, and the husband says the same thing. The husband of the main couple says the same thing, and so the wife is thinking, okay, why is he so laid back, and why is he so he's giving so much charity out? And so things start to become even more complicated when more people start to arrive, and this forces this woman to think that something sinister is going on. So the whole situation is about to spiral down in a set of very bizarre circumstances, and what those bizarre circumstances are is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now, my thoughts on Mother. I didn't know what to expect coming into this film. Now, I was very skeptical. I was hesitant actually coming into the experience because a lot of people love it and a lot of people hate it. Now, initially, these are films that I go for, but when it comes to Hollywood entertainment, a lot of it is popcorn horror. And so when I actually knew that Darren Aronofsky was the director, I still had hope that this was going to be something a little bit different, because his other films, such as Black Swan, I thought that was a very challenging film. Requiem for a Dream, which was a very, very devastating film about drugs. I thought those movies really test the limits, and there's something a little bit different within the Hollywood genre. And so when I heard that a lot of people hated it, a lot of people loved it, these are the type of movies that I think need to be made. These are movies that challenge audiences, and so I was hoping that I was going to be challenged myself after seeing Mother, and after seeing it last night, I will say that I was challenged, and I ended up absolutely loving this film. I will go as far to say that Mother is a masterpiece. A lot of people might say this is pretentious, and yes, it does have a lot of pretentious quality, but I thought that pretentious quality was done for a very specific reason. It wasn't there just to be an art house sort of film for the sake of being art house and for the sake of being different. I thought there was a very strong plan, and those plans were executed in a very bizarre fashion, but it's a fashion that is very reminiscent of European cinema. So to start off with, you have a very complex story. It's a very simplistic story on the outside, but there's a lot of symbolic meaning in this film. There's a lot of underlying issues in this film that are actually depicted in a way where you have to decipher what is going on. And because you're deciphering what is going on, you're never bored with the experience. This movie goes for 2 hours, but I never felt that 2-hour run length, is because I was constantly asking myself, where is Darren Aronofsky taking me with the next scene? Each scene seemed to have a very specific plan, and it was a piece of the puzzle that you have to put together. And when you put together pieces of the puzzle, all of a sudden the picture is becoming clearer and clearer, and when that picture does become clear enough to actually know what's going on, it gives you that very haunting feeling. Is that the whole movie has a sense of dread to it, but as the movie goes along, it snowballs into this effect where I thought to myself, I'm very uncomfortable with what I'm actually seeing. And there are some very shocking moments that I thought complemented that sense of anticipation of what is behind everything that is going on. And so the movie does have a very deep and meaningful sort of approach to it. I'm not going to give you my interpretation of the film, but I thought my interpretation actually gave that sense of rewarding qualities, that this is a roller coaster that is out of control. You don't know where it's going to finish. And so because it has so much unpredictable quality to the film, I thought to myself, okay, well, this is a movie that's not going for 2 hours for the sake of being an epic film. This is a movie where it's actually is very carefully thought out. The thought process was fantastic, and it's just an example of what a quality director Darren Aronofsky is. I think this is by far his best film. I didn't really like Black Swan as much, is because yes, that was different, but it wasn't quite as complex as this movie was. I just thought the movie had so many underlying sort of themes. The themes were very shocking and very taboo in some areas, and I thought those taboo subject matters, it makes it uncomfortable. And so it's a horror film without trying too hard to be a horror film, although there are some very horrific sort of scenes at the end of the movie. The cinematography was absolutely fantastic. Darren Aronofsky had a very strange way of actually following the characters along, so it felt like you were a fly on their shoulder, and so you're actually seeing what they're seeing. And I really like the way the cinematography went about its business in telling a very visual story. You've got a very haunting sort of colour palette, which is a very yellowy sort of tinge to it, which I actually thought it actually felt like it was trapped in a nightmare, and it gives it that sort of mythological sort of approach where you've got these underlying themes, the deep symbolic meaning, which actually captures the dreamlike atmosphere that Darren Aronofsky really wanted to create. You've got acting performances that were absolutely fantastic from Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. You've got some very good cameos from Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer. So you've got very good actors who feel as though they have a lot of respect for Darren Aronofsky. The film is very well written, the characters are very well fleshed out, but there's a level of mystery that is always making you ask for more, is that you want to know what's behind the next story, and because Darren Aronofsky leaves that intrigue there, as I said, you never feel like it goes for that 2-hour run length. And so the whole film, the soundtrack was fantastic, it created that sense of dread, and the whole film felt like a nightmare to me, but it was a nightmare, and underneath, as I said, that symbolic meaning gave this film a sense of beauty. So the beauty kind of contradicts the ugliness that you're actually seeing being depicted, and this is what gives that movie that deep complexity that I think a lot of European films have. And so it's a breath of fresh air when it comes to Hollywood. I still think, you know, there are directors out there who are willing to challenge an audience to a length where you feel as though you're experiencing the film instead of just leaving your brain at the door with a tub of popcorn and a Coke, actually enjoying what's actually on screen. For example, Transformers or DC, Marvel comic book films. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a place for that in Hollywood because it does generate a lot of money, but for me, the reason why I love foreign film as opposed to American film is that foreign films are very much like Mother, in that you're actually deciphering what's going on. It feels like a challenge, and that the director is actually challenging you to actually use your brain. And when you're using your brain, it does give it that sense of rewarding quality, and that's why I love the film as much as I did. Now, if you didn't like the film, I'm not saying that you're stupid or you just don't appreciate different film, but for me, I went in there with the experience of actually seeing these types of films before, and this is something that surprised me the most. So I thought this is a masterpiece of a film, and it's not often that I give these scores, but I definitely think Mother deserves it. I'm going to give it 5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.